Welcome to Part 1 of our Soils module, Soil Fertility in Organic Systems.
This module was authored by Adria Fernandez, John Lamb, Christine Moncada, Constance Carlson, and Craig Schaefer of the University of Minnesota in 2017 and was updated in 2026. Narrated by Constance Carlson, with additional narration generated using the AI voice of Hannah from 11 Labs.
The first portion of this module will be an overview of soil fertility practices in organic systems. We will discuss crop nutrition, organic fertility principles, ways of meeting organic standards, and how to build fertility through your organic transition. First, we'll talk a little about crop nutrition. We'll discuss the macronutrients and micronutrients that crops need to survive, the effects of nutrient deficiency, nutrient availability in soils, and how to adjust soil pH. Every crop will need a slightly different balance of nutrients. The nutrients that plants need in larger quantities are called macronutrients. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK, are the big three, or primary nutrients, that plants obtain from soil. However, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur are also essential macronutrients for all plants. Micronutrients are crucial to plant health, but are needed only in very small quantities. They include chlorine, iron, boron, manganese, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and nickel. What happens when plants don't get enough of the nutrients they need? When crops do not get as much as they need of a particular nutrient, either because it is not present in the soil or because it is present but not available to the plant, you may observe symptoms of nutrient deficiency. These will often include yellow, discolored, or curling leaves and stunted growth.
The corn seedlings in this picture have purplish leaves instead of corn's normal green leaves because these plants are phosphorus deficient.
Sometimes deficiencies can be diagnosed by their symptoms, but in some cases you may wish to confirm and document the deficiency with laboratory testing of plant tissue. Tissue test results are not necessarily conclusive by themselves and should be confirmed by comparing soil nutrient levels between symptomatic and healthy portions of the field. Sometimes nutrients are in the soil, but they are just not available for the plant to use. The availability of soil nutrients for plant uptake depends on several factors, three of which we will discuss here. First, the accessibility of the nutrient, whether it is in a chemical form that can reach and be taken up by the root. Second, pH. The pH of the soil controls how much of the nutrient will be bound to mineral particles in the soil and therefore inaccessible. The third factor affecting nutrient availability is timing. Nutrient release from fertilizers and organic matter must coincide with the crop's need for that nutrient.
Here is a generalized graph of the nitrogen needs of a crop over the months of the growing season from March to September. The need gradually increases from April to June, peaks at the end of July, and starts to rapidly decrease into September.
For example, in this figure, which shows corn uptake of nitrogen throughout the season, we see that crop N increases steeply in the late stages of vegetative development, indicating that corn has a strong need for soluble, accessible nitrogen at that time. If nitrogen is released from fertilizer too soon or too late, it will not be available when the corn needs it. In some cases, nutrient availability can be improved by adjusting soil pH. Soil pH affects the availability of all soil nutrients. Each nutrient responds slightly differently to pH. but most are maximally available at a pH of between 6 and 7. The optimum soil pH of different crops also differs. A good pH target for most crops is 6, but a target of 6.5 is more appropriate for alfalfa. Many soils will benefit from raising the pH, which means reducing the acidity of the soil by applying agricultural lime.
Lime application is most likely to be needed in eastern Minnesota, where most subsoils are non-acidic. This map shows the eastern part of the state where lime may be needed. The gray shaded part of the map in the western half of the state has acidic subsoils.
You should sample your soils according to testing lab guidelines and consult the lab's recommendations and extension guidelines to determine appropriate lime application rates for your soils. When applying lime, be aware that it will also supply soil calcium, and some lime sources include magnesium as well. Not all available lime sources are permitted under the National Organic Rule. Permitted liming materials in organic agriculture are limestone or mined calcium carbonate and dolomite or magnesium carbonate.
You are not permitted to use quicklime, which is calcium oxide, burnt dolomite, which is magnesium oxide, slaked lime, which is calcium hydroxide, milk of magnesia, which is magnesium hydroxide, lime from paper mill sludge, or synthetic additives.
Every organic farmer manages soil fertility a little differently, but organic fertility practices are based on very different principles than conventional crop fertilization. As an organic farmer, you are responsible for managing fertility through your rotations, which will build a foundation of soil organic matter. Organic nutrient sources tend to be slow release, and organic practices focus on conserving nutrients on the farm and deriving fertility from on-farm sources, such as livestock manures and nitrogen-fixing legumes, as much as possible.
In this image, we show alfalfa, a legume crop, being plowed into the soil to provide many soil benefits.
One theme that you will hear repeated over and over in organics is, feed the soil, not the crop. Your focus should be on managing soil fertility by creating rotations that build and protect the long-term health and integrity of the soil. This generally includes some fertilizer inputs, but the overarching goal is to manage your whole system in ways that promote fertile soil. When building an organic rotation, you will choose diverse crops that can carry out diverse soil building functions. By carefully choosing crops for your rotation, you can manage fertilizer demand. For example, by balancing heavy-feeding crops with more modest nutrient needs. A good rotation can also facilitate biological nitrogen fixation, hold nutrients in your system, and keep your soils covered and protected. You will notice that a diversity of crops in your rotation addresses many of the fertility principles of organic agriculture. The foundation of soil fertility is soil organic matter, the carbon-based materials derived from decomposition of plant, animal, and microbial biomass. This material is the basis for nutrient cycling in the soil, supporting the decomposer organisms that digest and release nutrients from organic materials, from microscopic bacteria and fungi to larger organisms like earthworms. This mixture of materials in various stages of decomposition will contain nutrients in varying forms and levels of availability.
In this picture, we show a close-up of several earthworms gathered on top of some soil.
Soil organic matter that is relatively stable is known as humus. Humus serves as a reservoir of nutrients in the soil, and its presence supports good soil tilth, a collection of properties including soil structure and ease of tillage, aeration, water infiltration and water holding capacity, and resistance to erosion. In general, the materials that are used for soil fertility in organic farming are slow-release nutrient sources. Materials like plant residues and compost have low concentrations of soluble nutrients compared to synthetic fertilizers. Instead, their nutrient content is released over the course of months to years into plant-available forms through microbial decomposition processes.
In this photo, we show a cover crop being disked into a field where it will provide organic matter to the soil.
Good organic fertility practices include measures to conserve the nutrients that are already present in the soil. Nutrients are inevitably exported from the farm whenever you harvest a crop, but you can retain as much as possible of the straw, stover, residues, and other biomass that is produced on the farm and return the nutrients to the soil. An important aspect of nutrient conservation is preventing soil and nutrients from leaving your farm through erosion, runoff, or leaching. Including cover crops and perennials in your rotation will provide physical protection for your soil from wind and water erosion. Winter hardy crops can use the late fall and early spring to scavenge and hold excess nutrients in their biomass that might otherwise have been vulnerable to loss.
This picture shows a bare field where the light-colored soil is evidence of topsoil lost to soil erosion due to lack of soil cover.
Conservation tillage practices are those that retain greater than 30% crop residue on the soil surface. Many organic farmers try to rely as much as possible on on-farm nutrient sources. These can include legumes, which partner with symbiotic rhizobium bacteria to biologically fix nitrogen from the atmosphere, and livestock, which can take in nutrients from feed crops, forages, and pasture and return them to the soil in the form of manure. We will cover biological nitrogen fixation in more detail in Part 2 of our Soils Module series. The National Organic Rule has stringent standards on how soil fertility needs can be met in organic systems. We will briefly discuss the legal requirements for organic fertility and will outline which inputs are permitted and which are prohibited. The National Organic Program states that organic farmers must manage crop nutrients and soil fertility through rotations, cover crops, and the application of plant and animal materials. Specifically, you must manage plant and animal materials to maintain or improve soil organic matter content. To verify that you are meeting organic certification requirements, you must document all applications of fertilizer, lime, or other soil amendments in your organic system plan. Certifiers may have differing interpretations of exactly which amendments are allowable under what circumstances. When in doubt, ask your certifier before applying. The organic standards permit you to manage crop and soil health using naturally occurring non-synthetic substances. The rule also provides limited specific exemptions for certain synthetic substances. The best source of guidance on the status of particular substances is the Organic Materials Review Institute, which provides regularly updated lists of generic and commercial products permitted for use in organic farming. The National Organic Program states that materials cannot be used in a manner that will cause contamination of crops, soil, or water. This means that even if a substance is not prohibited, its use may be restricted. For example, the timing of application of raw animal manures is subject to restrictions. Certain highly soluble mined fertilizers such as Chilean nitrate are permitted only in defined amounts and circumstances, and some nutrients can be applied only if you have tests documenting a deficiency. The organic standards prohibit the use of all synthetic substances except for specifically defined exemptions. Prohibited materials include common conventional fertilizers like anhydrous ammonia, urea, and superphosphate.
This photo shows a tank of anhydrous ammonia, which is a prohibited material as we mentioned.
Sewage sludge is not a permitted fertilizer, nor are substances derived from genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Certain toxic natural substances, like arsenic, are also specifically prohibited. Building fertility in transitional soils involves supporting crop yields, monitoring soil health, and finding appropriate recommendations. You may find that your soil nutrient levels will dip somewhat during the transition period. This is the time when application of conventional, highly available fertilizers has stopped, but the soil is still just beginning to be fed with the organic materials that will build the soil organic matter that promotes long-term stable fertility. During this less fertile period, you will need to ensure that your crops are provided with adequate supplies of available nutrients in the form of manures and other permitted inputs. Your organic system plan must describe how you intend to maintain or improve soil health, and the outcomes of your soil health and fertility practices must be recorded. Your certifier may have particular ways that they want you to use to monitor soil health, but you will definitely want to document yield trends in your fields, as well as the results of all soil and plant tissue tests, so that outcomes can be tracked over time. Soil testing is a valuable guide during transition.
This picture shows a soil probe, a tool to collect soil samples, and a bucket to collect soil.
Soil tests will help you determine the baseline fertility that you are starting from, both in the terms of nutrient levels and organic matter. With these test results in hand, you can choose crops that are suited to your soil's nutrient levels and will contribute to building organic matter. You can continue to monitor soil fertility by testing throughout your transition and afterward to ensure that your practices are succeeding in improving fertility in the long term. The best time to test your soil is before planting so that you can manage any nutrient deficiencies proactively. When you start seeing nutrient deficiency symptoms on your crops, you've waited too long. Yields will already have been reduced. To obtain a representative sample of your field, divide it into areas that are relatively uniform. Each area should be no more than about 20 acres on level ground, or 5 acres on hilly or variable land.
In this graphic, we show stars to represent sampling points. Within this representation of a field, the sampling points are random and the collection path follows a zigzag pattern.
Submit a sample from each area consisting of 15 to 30 soil cores taken to a depth of 6 to 8 inches in a zigzag pattern across the area. In many cases, the results that soil testing labs provide will include recommendations for nutrient, lime, or other amendment applications. As we have mentioned, some amendments are only permitted in organics if you have a test result documenting the need for them. The University Extension is also a good source for recommendations for amendments and application rates. However, it's important to keep in mind that laboratory and university recommendations are rarely targeted specifically to organic farmers, so you must still stay within the bounds of the organic standards. If you have any doubt about whether a recommended application is permitted, ask your certifier. We hope this module has helped you understand how to build healthy, fertile soils as you transition your farm to organic. Here are some key points to remember. Focus on building and maintaining soil organic matter, the foundation of organic fertility. Use soil tests to identify and tackle nutrient deficiencies proactively. And whenever you are uncertain about an input or practice, check in with your certifier. Thank you for watching. Please continue with the Soils Part 2, Sources of Organic Nutrients module to complete the soil series.
This project is supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, Organic Transitions Program under Award Number 2013-5, 1106-2, 1005. This project is supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Marketing Service, National Organic Program under the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, TOPP, in the Midwest region. Any opinions, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this publication are those of the authors and should not be construed to represent any official USDA or U.S. government determination or policy. The University of Minnesota shall provide equal access to and opportunity in its programs, facilities, and employment without regard to race, color, creed, religion, national origin, gender, age, marital status, familial status, disability, public assistance status, membership or activity in a local commission created for the purpose of dealing with discrimination, veteran status, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. For more information about this project, please see organicag.umn.edu, copyright 2026, Regents of the University of Minnesota. All rights reserved.